Asylums are scary enough, but did you know that some prisons were turned into them? And it got way worse than you'd imagine. Imagine being locked up for a crime you didn't commit. Then one day you wake up and all the guards are gone. The prison doors are wide open and there's blood everywhere. What the hell just happened here? Well, let me tell you, these prisons weren't your typical lockups. They were more like halfway houses where prisoners could work and earn money to turn their lives around. But in the early 1900s, many prisons were overcrowded and understaffed. So instead of working on their farms or doing hard labor, prisoners were left to their own devices with little supervision. And that's when things started to get weird. In the 1920s, prisoners began organizing fighting matches and gambling rings, and when the authorities tried to break them up, they often found themselves outnumbered and overwhelmed. It got so bad that in some prisons, prisoners took over entire wings and turned them into their own private slums with their own rules and regulations. The inmates were essentially running their own prisons within a prison. But it wasn't all bad news. In 1938, an inmate named Thomas Silverstein came up with a brilliant idea. He organized a poker game with his fellow inmates and charged them a small fee to play. This may not sound like a big deal now, but back then it was huge. In fact, it led to the creation of the first prison casino. Now you're probably wondering, how did they get away with this? Well, it all had to do with the guards. You see, the prison guards were notoriously lazy and corrupt. They didn't want to work hard to maintain order and security, so they turned a blind eye to the illegal activities as long as they didn't get caught. In fact, some guards even participated in the fights and games. It was like a big party, except instead of fun and games, it was violence and gambling. But eventually the truth came out, and the public was outraged to learn what had been going on behind the prison walls. Many people called for the prison system to be reformed, but nothing ever came of it. Instead, things just got crazier. Over the next few decades, several prisons were converted into mental hospitals. And instead of criminals, they housed the most dangerous criminals in the country. These prisons were still understaffed and overcrowded, but now the inmates were violent and unpredictable. It was a recipe for disaster. In the 1960s and 70s, several riots broke out in these prisons, leaving dozens dead. But despite all the chaos and violence, there was one thing that made these prisons unique. They were home to some of the most brilliant minds in the world. People like John Nash, the brilliant mathematician who inspired the movie A Beautiful Mind. Nash spent several years in a prison hospital before being declared sane enough to stand trial. So if you ever find yourself locked up in a prison hospital, make sure to keep your wits about you. You never know who you might meet.